Ghana's end of that IMF bailout that we have been on for the last few years. Well, we will delve specifically into how come we've been able to achieve the success of successfully undergoing an IMF bailout, and now the onus lies on the leadership of the country to ensure that they steer us in the right direction to ensure we do not return ever again, hopefully, to the IMF for a bailout. But before we do that story, let's look at one other important one that many of you have also been sharing your thoughts on. It has to do with illegal mining. And the European Union has raised fresh concerns over the growing threat of illegal mining activities, popularly known as galamsey in Ghana. The warning comes after the European Union ambassador to Ghana, Rune Skinnenbach, led a delegation on a fact-finding mission to parts of the Atewa Forest Range and affected communities within the Buakwa South municipality in the eastern region. During the visit, the delegation observed the devastating impact of illegal mining on water bodies, farmlands, and forest reserves, with concerns mounting over the environmental degradation and the long-term effect on local livelihoods. He adds to the growing number of environmental experts who continue to warn that illegal mining poses a serious threat to Ghana's ecosystem, particularly major water sources and protected forest reserves. Let's listen to the ambassador, the EU ambassador to Ghana, who's been speaking on the issue. He also stressed that efforts to combat galamsey would not be sustainable without stronger regulations, consistent law enforcement, and long-term environmental protection policies.
Our stance is that what we are seeing today is definitely not sustainable. We know that there are problems with enforcing also this framework which has been laid down, and today we have seen or partly understood why. We can see whole communities benefiting from galamsey, but in the short term. We've also seen, and we can see here around ourselves, the effects it has on nature, and on top of what we can see, we know that it's polluting the water bodies. 65% of the water bodies in Ghana are now polluted due to galamsey. I think to address a complex issue like galamsey, first of all, we need to think long term. We need to think sustainability. We need to have regulation, and we need to have enforcement of the regulation. It requires a lot of resources to do that, but now is a good time. Gold prices are high. We can have a regulated exploration of gold and still make a profit. So the EU is doing a multitude of things in Ghana. We are partnering in Ghana in a series of areas, certainly in development cooperation, also in security and defense, and we are very willing to partner with Ghana on the galamsey file also.
And that's the EU ambassador to Ghana clearly expressing his thoughts on what he observed when he went on a tour of part of the Atewa Forest Range and affected communities that have been devastated by galamsey. Daryl Bosu has joined us on the phone for a quick conversation. Mr. Bosu, thank you for your time.
It's a pleasure to be here and speak to you as well.
Right. So you were part of the delegation that went around with EU ambassador to Ghana. What were your general observations when you went around?
Okay, so I think maybe to put it in context, it's important to know that the EU has for the past 2 years been supporting initiatives around building the capacity and knowledge base of communities to be able to effectively engage with the booming extractive sector in a project we call BRACE, Building Resilient and Active Communities in Extractive Landscapes. So this was part of effort to really get on the ground to appreciate the dynamics in terms of how mining is interfacing with forests, water services, and also with communities, particularly in respect of safeguards. So the visit, as you have seen, was more to connect at the landscape level, know the extent to which the galamsey is happening, and on the ground, as has been the issues we've been communicating over the past few months, what you see on the ground is that the issue of galamsey is still very much live, is extending, is escalating. Miners are actively taking away forests and also diverting rivers. And there's also this kind of impunity where landowners think that because the land is theirs, they can decide to give it out for mining without recourse to existing laws that requires that even before you mine on any land, you go for a permit. So you see across the landscape landowners deciding to allow miners to mine on their land. So you see farmers go to sleep, but by morning there's a miner on their land because the landowner has given the land out. And you see lands adjacent to people's houses and settlements, people fencing their land and allowing miners to go and do some illegal activity in there. So this is how bad the situation is. So you hear a lot of narratives, rhetorics at the national level, but on the ground, there's a different appreciation of what needs to be done to stop galamsey because the impunity is still there and enforcement is not as strong as we expect it to be.
That's quite interesting, and I'm expressing this feeling because we have thought that over the last few months, let's say even the last 6 to 8 months, some key interventions have been taken by the administration, the current administration, where we know that, like the NIMOS task force, for instance, have gone around many parts, river bodies where we have galamsey activities on. They've arrested, distributed even some of the pump machines they seized, etc. So some action against galamsey is ongoing. Are you saying that it is not commensurate to the kind of devastation that we are still reporting?
No, I agree with you, yes. There's a lot of activities by NIMOS. There's a lot of interventions by NIMOS. But, NIMOS is not present permanently in most of the locations where they go to do some of these incursions.
Right.
So by the time they go to a location, they are heading back, the miners are going back. These guys, they're also playing very smart. Some of them work in the night. They know when officers are coming. They have their informants on the ground. So for them, they see it as a small risk they take. So they continue to do their work. And I'm saying that, yes, you see all the activities of NIMO, you see all the talk about policies, but you drive through just from Accra to Kumasi, right from Enunem, Osino, Eastern region, going to Konongo, Dumasi, you see people openly and brazenly doing mining as if there is no action of NIMO, there's no action of galamsey, and it is very sad. So people are also on a daily basis giving out their lands to mine. And you see miners also on a daily basis moving into forest reserves, hiding under the canopy and digging away the ground. And so it is still there. So it is one thing, that's why I say that there's a parallel system in place where government says it's fighting galamsey, but on the ground, the reality is very, very different.
The EU ambassador, amongst other things, indicated that the galamsey fight cannot be won or at least sustained without stricter regulations and enforcement. What's your understanding of that?
Yes, I think that is very true. We've always said that we have all the laws, but when it comes to enforcement and compliance, that is where we are lacking. Now, if you know that a landowner, we see mining happening in people's houses, people giving out their farmlands to mine, and we know there are police officers in some of these locations, but nobody is asking the question, who gave out this land to mine? What we have been doing so far is going after the people who are doing the mining. But when we do that, what about the person who gave the land out for mining activity? What about the persons whose equipment? And there are already laws. Act 995 is there talking about facilitation of galamsey, and even what also about the issue of buying illegal goods. So there's a whole lot of laws, suits of laws, provisions that we have to work with. There's a requirement for environmental impact assessment for mining companies. There are certain mining companies who claim they are large companies, but if you go to the ground, they are parceling out their leases and giving it out to small-scale miners who are also doing whatever they want. So you see a concession belonging to a large scale, but what is happening on the site has nothing that is comparable to a large-scale mine that is expected to really adhere to some best practices. So There's a lot of laws, but nobody is following up with the due diligence of compliance and enforcement. And that is how come we are lacking. And also that's why we are saying that there shouldn't be any reason why NIMO should be the one moving from Accra to the landscapes when there's all the police commands and the divisional and the district and the regional offices. So compliance is definitely lacking. At the point where we find ourselves, even when we say we are going to give illegal miners some alternative livelihood activities to do, because they know that the enforcement in the Galamsey field is low, they will always abandon the livelihood alternatives and go back to the mines, because they know that the enforcement and compliance there is so bad that they can get away with anything. So I think there's really a challenge with enforcement, and that is why you've heard the Forestry Commission saying that they need to be retooled, they need to be equipped, they need to be provided some paramilitary paraphernalia for them to really be able to address the new age threat that is affecting our forest reserves. We can say the same for the Forest, the Water Resources Commission, and also other sector agencies like Cocoa Board and all others who are also contributing to the socio-economic development of this country.
We cannot give up on this fight. We certainly need to sustain it and push it further. But is it something you believe we can win? And if yes, how? Because there clearly has been the rhetoric. We have seen some action from the previous government, the current administration as well. But it looks as though the challenge goes beyond just people in authority. How else can we successfully say that based on these specific timelines, we've been able to achieve this and we are on the right path? Because the narrative I'm getting from not just you, but the last few days as well, other environmentalists are painting the picture that, yes, effort is going in, but, comparatively, we are not making as much progress as many of us would have thought.
No, I think I agree with you. So, and what I've said always is that the solutions to dealing with the menace of Galamsey is at hand to this government. They only need to pay attention and be very diligent with it. When you look at the value chain of Galamsey, there are those in the pit who are doing the digging, there are those who sell their farmlands, the landowners, there are those who also provide the equipment, there are those who sell fuel, and then there's also this traditional authority at the top there, some of which facilitate Galamsey and even allow it to go on. And there is also this political, I would say, capture and elite people in society who are also financing and participating in the process. When it comes to the present solution and actions on the ground, the government seems to be only focusing on the people in the pits. Nobody is paying attention to the landowners who are releasing their land from mining, selling the land and getting profit and even not paying taxes as a result of that. And then nobody is looking at the traditional authorities who are brazenly supervising and even allowing some people to mine and degrade and destroy the land. And we know a lot of some of the traditional authorities who are busily doing that, and they are bold enough to continue doing this. We also know of some politicians actively involved. All the president has said is that I know some members of the NDC are involved in Galamsey, but as to what he's doing to make sure that these people are brought to book to serve as a deterrent, that has never been done. Other processes of the necessary judicial systems, for example, prosecution of people related to engage in Galamsey, we were told that we were going to set up specialized courts, but as we know, the process is not going as it should. So the solution is at hand, but nobody is really making sure that it works. We talked about tracking excavators, movement from port to the mine site and all of that. Excellent ideas on paper, but when it comes to implementation, lacking to a large extent. So the solutions at hand, we just don't have government being diligent enough to make sure that these are working. And I've always said that until we really go back to the drawing table, make sure we implement the solutions to the letter, we are not going to succeed with this.
Right. Mr. Boss, before you take leave of us, and that will be my last question, help us understand how the argument being made by many of these illegal miners sits in the bigger scheme of things. They always push the argument that they are doing this because of unemployment and poverty and issues of, livelihood and just trying to survive. what amount of weight does this argument carry, or how much does it weigh into the general conversation about stopping the illegality, but then again ensuring that these people are also able to survive?
Well, I would say that there's some truth in that as well, but not entirely, because yes, you find those group of people who are living in communities that are largely agrarian. They don't see commodities that they produce like cocoa, food crops, and all that get premium market for all the hard work they put in, but they see people within the same landscape thriving on gold. Then these people are forced to join the wagon and also go into gold mining. And then there are those people who get into gold mining not because they are poor or lacking any job, but they are just greedy people who take advantage of the system just to live large and enrich themselves. And that is why when you go to these communities, you see a lot of car garage sales springing up, a lot of beer bars and pubs springing up, a lot of clubs, dance halls, all of this springing up, just so that people can live large, but not because these people are poor. So you find, I would say, the groupings in various forms. So those that really need them join the pit, go to the pit, so they can get some food, a daily livelihood to sustain themselves. And they are largely those people also who facilitate Galamsey because they want to sustain their lifestyles, which are not sustainable in the long term, because at the end of the day, if you see the impact of the water that is destroyed, which is going to affect thousands and millions of people, and if you see the forest reserve also destroyed, which has implications for climate emissions and also mitigation at the local level and then broadly at the international level, then also the health implications as a result of the exposure to heavy metal contamination of rivers, then you ask yourself whether all these impunity and associated mining activities that is not adhering to best practices should be condoned. So I think that it all has to be put in the right perspective. Okay. And if you do that, then we can really address those who really have needs for livelihood and those who really deal and engage in Galamsey because of living life. And that's why we have always said that the approach to deal with Galamsey must adopt one of both the carrot and stick. Identify those who need the carrot, give it to them, and those who are not willing to comply with existing rules and regulations, let them also feel the stick. And that is the only way we can move on sustainably as a country.
Right. Thank you so much for your time, as always, Mr. Bosu.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you, too.
Right. He is the Deputy National Coordinator of Arocha, Ghana, and clearly an advocate against issues that denigrate or degrade the environment. So we are clearly also hoping that you would let us know what your thoughts are on this particular issue of the Galamsey and the continuous fight against the degradation of our environment. Do let us know what you make of this development and how you, as a Ghanaian, can contribute to this greater fight against illegal mining. Stay with us. When we return, we go into the big story having to do with the fact that Ghana has successfully exited the IMF. But what does that mean to you? And also, how do we ensure that as a country we never return again with a cup in hand to the IMF? Details of all of that and more right after this. program. This is Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. Let's delve into some other stories we have for you this evening. And the government of Ghana has announced the end of Ghana's financial bailout program after successfully concluding its extended credit facility arrangement with the International Monetary Fund, describing it as a major step in the country's economic recovery and return to macroeconomic stability ahead of schedule. According to government, the turnaround was driven by fiscal consolidation, spending cuts, and structural reforms introduced after the program went off track at the end of 2024. Officials say that the measures have helped reduce inflation, strengthen the Ghana cedi, lower public debt relative to GDP, and restore investor confidence, alongside an upgrade in Ghana's sovereign credit rating from default levels to B with a positive outlook. Despite the exit from the bailout program, Ghana will transition into a new IMF policy coordination instrument, a non-financing technical assistance arrangement aimed at supporting reforms, maintaining fiscal discipline, reassuring investors, and potentially unlocking fresh investment. Let's listen to Finance Minister Dr. Kwetey Atewa, who addressed a joint news conference following the big announcement of the exit.
Ghana's sovereign credit rating has also improved significantly from where we used to be to B positive, B with a positive outlook. And since then, we've seen almost 5 notches upgrade since our terrible times of restrictive default. This reflects improved fiscal performance, normalization of creditors' relationships, strong external buffers, and renewed market confidence. Our gross international reserves has also improved significantly to about 14.5 billion US dollars. These foreign exchange reserve buffers provide Ghana with the capacity to withstand external shocks and stand on its own feet. This announcement marks the definitive end of Ghana's financial bailout relationship with the IMF. The government of Ghana is exceedingly grateful to the people of Ghana for their sacrifices, resilience, and forbearance. The government of Ghana is also exceedingly grateful to our bilateral creditors, the Official Creditors Committee, and our external and domestic investors for their collective sacrifice. Going forward, the government of Ghana announces an engagement with the IMF on Policy Coordination Instrument, PCI. The PCI is a form of technical assistance engagement with the IMF. It is a non-financing instrument designed to help countries implement economic reforms and signal commitment to policies that the financial market will be very comfortable with, and unlock financing from private investors and other development partners. For the avoidance of doubt, the PCI does not provide financial bailout, but it will offer continuous capacity development, confidence boosts to the market, and deliver a catalytic effect for fresh financing to Ghana. This non-bailout technical assistance policy coordination instrument will complement government effort to achieve investment grade in the near future. Achieving investment grade is very important and significant to the people of Ghana. It will lower sovereign and private sector borrowing costs and attract long-term institutional investors, increase foreign direct investment, and unlock cheaper financing for critical infrastructure development and private sector growth. Ultimately, this engagement will support government of Ghana's effort to accelerate sustainable development, create jobs, and raise living standards for all Ghanaians. President Mahama and his administration remain fully committed to good governance, prudent economic management, fiscal discipline, and creating an attractive environment for both domestic and international investment. Thank you very much.
And you heard the words of Dr. Kwetey Atewa, who is Ghana's finance minister. Now, the leader of the IMF team, Ruben Atoyan, commended Ghana's economic recovery but cautioned that global economic uncertainties and domestic fiscal risks still pose threats to the country's recovery efforts.
Rapidly, reserves have been rebuilt and confidence in the cedi has been restored. Fiscal discipline improved markedly, with a strong primary surplus and sharp decline in the debt ratio. Despite fiscal consolidation, what is very impressive, growth has been very strong and even stronger than what we expected, supported by broad-based private sector recovery and robust exports. These outcomes reflect determined policy implementation and progress in debt restructuring, and they mark an important turning point for the Ghanaian economy. As stability takes hold, our engagement is shifting beyond the ECF towards sustaining reforms and building resilience. We have reached staff-level agreement on the 36-month PCI. The PCI is, as Minister explained, a non-financing engagement, meaning that the phase of Ghana's dependence on IMF financing is over. Instead, the PCI serves as a strong IMF stamp of approval, signaling to markets and developing partners that policies are sound and reforms are on track, helping to reinforce confidence and catalyze investment and support. As Minister has mentioned, legally speaking for us, PCI is not a program, it's a form of a technical assistance. We're very happy to engage in this new phase of relationship with Ghana. The PCI will focus on multiple objectives. Importantly, sustaining growth-friendly fiscal consolidation, safeguarding debt sustainability, strengthening transparency and governance, reinforcing monetary and financial policy frameworks, supporting diversification, inclusive growth, and job creation. This instrument will entrench policy credibility and lock in the gains achieved under the ECF.
And so that's the voice of Ruben Atoyan, who is the IMF staff team lead, and also commending Ghana for at least being able to successfully end and exit the IMF program. But now let's speak to Joe Jackson, who is an economist and one that has been following this particular development very keenly, right from the moment the previous administration was being warned to start considering going to the IMF up until when they finally ended up going, and now that we've exited. Joe Jackson is one of the voices that has, spoken about what Ghana can do and how Ghana can behave itself when it was under an IMF program. Well, now we are being told that we've successfully exited. What does that mean going forward? Mr. Jackson, good evening. Thank you for joining us on 3FM.
Good evening and good evening to your listeners.
Help us understand the significance of this exit from the IMF bailout program, especially considering the trajectory that the country's economy is on.
First of all, I would like to reframe this a little bit and to say Ghana is exiting IMF money, but moving to IMF monitoring and credibility support under a new proposed non-financing policy coordination instrument. You see, to say we are exiting completely does not really tell us the full story. This is not a graduation. It is probation with more freedom. And Ghana has stabilized. We have shown tremendous discipline in the way we spend our money and the way we've kept our spending within our means. But now we have to prove that we can behave without a lender holding our hand. The IMF will tell us that the focus is on fiscal discipline, which is how the government spends its money. Debt sustainability, how we govern our state-owned enterprise. How our cedi, dollar, the foreign exchange rate policy, how stable our financial sector is, and how we can show inclusive growth. All these are part of what we have to do under the monitoring and credibility support program. right? So, in other words, there's good news for the average Ghanaian. If our discipline holds, prices will stabilize. The cedi will be less going up and down, and interest rates will stay stable. But there's an honest part to this. Stability is not the same as prosperity. And so we will say, this is not food prices, this is not transport fares, this is not rent, this is not jobs, this is not school fees, electricity or income. These ones will not be judged by IMF press releases, they'll be judged by how the Ghanaian feels. So to sum it up, Ghana was in an emergency ward. Just 18 months ago, we were still in crisis. We have left the emergency ward. We've left the hospital. We've been brought home. But we are not fit enough to run a marathon. To do that, we have to show that we are fit. To do that, we have to exercise the discipline without the IMF holding a big stick over our heads.
Right. So it's good the way you've simplified it for us, because many were wondering what it meant to say we have exited the IMF, but then the finance minister was saying that we are, however, still working with the IMF on a policy coordination instrument. So the explanation you've given about, yes, we were in the emergency or intensive care, we've now come to a more stable position. Now it's left with how we can get fit and run a full marathon as a country. What can we do in this period, now that we are not dependent on funding or financing from the IMF? What are the key 3 things, maybe 5, if you can help us, that we need to do to sustain this level of confidence that the IMF has in us and are willing to support us, in the next phase?
I think 5 things are too many. The number 1, number 2, number 3 is fiscal discipline. What do you mean by fiscal discipline? It means don't spend money that you don't have. It means keep spending only money that you have. It means if you have to borrow, you borrow wisely. You borrow to invest in a project that will help pay for the borrowing. You don't borrow to consume. You don't borrow to pay teacher training allowances. You don't borrow to do free SHS and all the other things that we have done in the past. We borrow only for projects that will yield a return. So I'll tell you, number 1 is discipline. Number 2 is discipline. Number 3 is still discipline. Be disciplined how you spend. Be disciplined how you borrow. And everything will work out. That's the only way we can show that over this next regime that we are ready to run a marathon. Remember that the foreign market, the rest of the world, they are watching us. Ghana has exit. Does that mean that they will return to the bad old days? Does that mean that they will return to the bad old habits? Does that mean that we will go on a borrowing binge? This is the time to show that we are disciplined and we can manage our own affairs. That is that we may have to reduce our expectations of what the government can do and should do for us.
Right. And again,
the government can't do everything and should not do everything. There should be prioritization so that the discipline can be applied.
Yeah, and Mr. Jackson, how is it that under the bailout program we are disciplined, quote unquote, but out of it we clearly are unable to sustain the disciplined nature of our of managing the economy? What really is the problem we have as a country, and how do we hope not to repeat or allow those problems to start, rearing their ugly heads?
Well, the simple answer is that we should stop playing this partisan politics. If partisan politics is part of the problem, as soon as the IMF is not watching us, we want to spend our way to the next election victory. We want to spend our way playing populist games, telling the population sweet stories that we shouldn't be doing simply because of the partisan politics that we apply. So it is time for our politicians to start thinking about the country first and not about one part of the divide or the other part of the divide first. If we do that, the discipline will stay.
Right.
If we don't, we'll go back to the bad old days.
The previous administration, partly blamed global developments for the fact that they could not properly manage the economy, especially getting to the end of the last administration. Global developments are still ongoing. A lot of wars are still happening. What are the potential international threats to our recovery program?
Well, first of all, I'm not sure I entirely agree with blaming everything on the global threats that happened. It is true that COVID was a once-in-a-generation event. But even before COVID, we were already mismanaging the economy. We were borrowing too much, and we didn't have the ability to pay for our debts. So all that the external events did was to expose us. If we keep the discipline, we will better be able to survive external debt, external risk, and external shocks. Let me give an example. Today, as we sit, there are countries in the world who are already rationing fuel because of the war in the Middle East, the Iran-Israeli-USA war. Ghana, because of the discipline we have maintained so far, we have not yet reached the point of rationing fuel. Despite all the challenges and all the pressures, we are still surviving. The biggest problem is that we must keep the discipline. If you keep the discipline, the external shocks you'll be better able to manage the external shocks. It is like somebody who is not disciplined with the food he eats, and he eats any kind of food doesn't undertake any exercise. When the disease comes, it will affect you more than when somebody who is healthy with his diet and his exercise. So it is up to Ghana. We can decide that we will not diet, we will not exercise. And when disease comes, the doctors say you are more at risk and you suffer more than the person who is healthy and keeps the right diet. That rule applies for our health. It also applies for our economy and our economic health.
The Honorable Joe Jackson, we are grateful for your time this evening and as always.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for talking to us. He is a financial analyst and an economist as well, Joe Jackson there. So what do you make of this news that Ghana has exited the IMF program, although we are still working closely with the IMF on what they call the policy coordination instrument, which technically just means, or basically just means, that the IMF will still be working with the government of Ghana in helping, assisting, and guiding us in the management of the economy, but it is not going to be financial. They are not going to be giving us any money, but will be giving us technical support and advice and even endorsements when we ever decide to return to the international market. Let us know in the comment section. Send us your thoughts and we'll be happy to share it with the rest of the world. This is 3FM 92.7. You're listening to Hot Edition. It is live from our studio here at Adesawe in Accra. Let's now do some politics now. And the General Secretary of the National Democratic Congress, Fifi Kwetey, has lamented the influx of persons who do not understand the values and foundation of the NDC, but are only in for what they can gain, adding that such individuals need to be reoriented. The General Secretary was speaking at a briefing outlining the party's activities ahead of the June 4 celebration. Let's listen to the General Secretary of the NDC, Fifi Kwetey.
You should appreciate that any political party would always have it's not everybody who will join a political party who will be joining the purest of intention. So some people clearly are joining because of their own agenda. And it's not just limited to young people, it's across to the very highest level. And so our job, especially as leader of the party, is always to constantly make a call for rededication to the core values of the party. You can appreciate, even as a Christian, that there are people who go to church, but they are not necessarily very committed to the values of Jesus Christ. For them, maybe they go to church because that's an opportunity to have fun. Somebody's looking for his wife. So people go for different agenda. The same way political party as well, you have people who really are here. They don't even understand what the NDC is about. They don't know what the values of the NDC stands for. You never see them on any program that has to do with the real values of the NDC. So for example, you have in June 4, they will never appear. 31st December, you never see them. Even the party's anniversary, you never see them. But if there's an opportunity for a sharing of some booty, the queue will be the first in the queue. And so these are opportunities to constantly tell people that this party is fundamentally about making sure that the empowerment of the people is number one. This party is not about individuals, it's about the group. So if the reason why you join this party is simply because you are looking for a cash cow for yourself, then you are in the wrong party. And but it's not an easy call to make. But it's a call that we'll continue to make, especially for the younger generation, so that they can reconnect to those values. Because it's upon those values that we can build a nation that can truly be great and strong.
You hope that people have to be party-oriented, the party first, and then the country. I get the sense that perhaps that is what has contributed to a lot of the appointees looking inward to the party and not being patriots. Is that what this has become, since the party looks at persons who look for the interests of the party rather than the interests of the country?
It's not just limited to appointees. It's generally about all people who belong to the party. Even if you are at a branch level, and the reason why you are in that branch is because you are hoping for an opportunity for yourself, or an opportunity for just yourself and your family, without understanding that the reason why you are at the branch level is to commit to helping this party to be strong, you are not doing what is right. So from there it goes all the way to the very top. So every single one of us at all moments must appreciate that it is not about us as individuals. It's always about the collective, which is first the party and also the country. It's not an easy call because we are in a country where everybody thinks about himself first. But this party was founded on sacrifice, was founded on selflessness, on courage. And that is a call we always have to make so that people can appreciate that this is not a party, it's not a party like the MPP, where it's about, let me get in there and get something. It's a party that should always be about what can we do to ensure that power can go to as many people as possible. And in the process, when you as an individual get something, at least it is coming as a result of the collective benefit that all of us are getting. And this is a call that we continue to make to all members of the party first and foremost, and by extension to all members of our country, because really that's how you build a country that's great and strong as well, where every individual understands that it's about the collective well-being first. And when it's good for all of us, the individuals, or we can all get our benefit. Thank you.
And that's Fiavi Kwetey, who is the current General Secretary of the National Democratic Congress. Now, the party chairman has also been speaking at the event. I'm talking about Johnson Asiedu-Dartey, who urged party supporters to remain focused and stand resolutely behind the government to achieve its policies and programs. If you go to our website, 3news.com, you get details of this particular story and all the big ones that we brought to you. Before we go to sports, though, let's bring you this quick announcement. And Uriku Ampofo is standing by to let us know what's happening in the world of sports. Many of you have been seeing the countries that have released lists of their players for the upcoming World Cup in the US, Mexico, and Canada. But before we do that, let's talk about those of you who might want to go to the UK to study. Are you dreaming of studying in the UK with a scholarship? Well, here's a chance. Join the BCIE, which is the British Canadian International Education Limited, on the 16th of May at 10 in the morning at BCIE office located on the Osu Oxford Street behind the Snit Hospital for an exclusive secure scholarships in UK event. And meet representatives and explore scholarship opportunities from leading UK universities, including Durham University, University of Dundee, Brunel University in London, University of East London, University of Sunderland, and University of Lincoln. Get expert guidance on admissions, scholarships, visa processing, and your pathway to international education. Remember, the date is the 16th, which is tomorrow, 10 in the morning. And then just go to the venue, which is the BCIE office on the Osu Oxford Street behind the Snit Hospital. For more information, if you want to call them for direction or for more information, just call 054 012 4745 or 054 012 6285. Seats are limited, so don't miss the opportunity to secure your future in the UK. And on the back of that, we are handing over to the sports team.
Hello, good evening, and welcome to the sports segment here on Hot Edition on TFM 92.7 with me, Uriku Ampofo. We cross over to the University of Ghana Sports Stadium, where in just a few minutes' time, Ghana's 4x100-meter relays team for the men would be in action for the final of that event at the ongoing Africa Senior Championships. My colleague, Billy Shen, is currently at the stadium. Bill, it's a pleasure to have you this evening here on Hot Edition. What was it looking like observing the warm-up of the team? Do you have a clear idea of what the race position is going to be like? Are they going to maintain the same positions from the previous one, and what's the expectation like?
From the warm-up, the athletes look relaxed. They look fired up to go. They look like what they were saying yesterday. That it means too much to them to try and get the goal because they disappointed in the individual 100 meters. In regards to the order, we've not been made aware of a change, so the expectation is that they maintain the order. But I remember speaking to Edwin Ganayi about how slow it was with his baton team, and he said it's something that he was going to work with the team today, and he's been working with the team today to make sure that the baton team is smoother. I believe that they are going to maintain that, and I must say that even as I appeared at the media center, Alex Amankwa, who we spoke to yesterday, who won bronze for Ghana in the 800 meters, becoming the first Ghanaian to win a medal in the 800 meters in the African Senior Olympic Championship. It just came to pass by the media side, greeting everybody. He did mention yesterday that it was going to be a good teammate and come and support them, especially in the 4x100. And he's made good on that promise by coming here and achieved some other places that usually do not come to this kind of competitions, and they've also appeared here. I think the attendance is slightly better but it can still be much, much better.
And I mean, you mentioned that the team will be trying to go for gold. Is there a sense that this is perhaps the last opportunity for Ghana to get, its first gold medal at this championships, or would there be another opportunity in your opinion?
I think this is a major opportunity for Ghana to get a gold medal in the championships. 2 years ago in Douala, with a much changed team, Ghana was still able to get a gold medal in the 4x100. This time, they have a much stronger team, even though there's still Benjamin Azamati, who is so crucial to the 4x100. But Ibrahim Husseini has experience in the Olympics. We have Abdurrahim Saminu experience in the Olympics. Joseph Polamo also experience in the Olympics. And then Edwin Gadai, who recently had the experience in the World Relay Championship. And they do know that Nigeria will be a threat, because I did ask them, and they are keeping an eye on Nigeria, because remember 2 years ago, at the African Games, Nigeria managed to finish first after, and then Ghana finished second with the silver. So they have an eye on Nigeria, who also qualified to the final as well. And so that is a big opportunity for them to win. But there's also another opportunity. There's the 200 meters as well, which Ibrahim Husseini is here to compete. And he'll be competing tomorrow in the 200 meters. He's also one of the favorites to go on to win a medal, probably win gold in that one as well.
Well, thank you very much, Billy Shan, for joining us from the University of Ghana Sports Stadium. In case you are wondering, Ghana's men's 4x100 men relay team would be competing in the final at the Africa Senior Championships in just a few minutes' time, in just about 20 minutes' time at the University of Ghana Sports Stadium. If you cannot make your way there, you can check out the social media handle of 3 Sports at 3 Sports GH for live updates on that one. But before we go, making this 8th consecutive appearance at the Global Showpiece, the Black Princesses have been drawn in Group C, where they would face European giants France, Asian side Korea Republic, and then Ecuador from South America. The draw took place in Poland earlier on Friday, setting the stage for a thrilling contest. Our women's football expert, Akosua J, assesses the Black Princesses' chances.
In September 2026, Ghana and 23 other nations will gather in Poland for the U20 Women's World Cup. Ghana, who will be making their 8th appearance, have been paired in Group C alongside Ecuador, who are making their first appearance at the tournament. France, who have made 9 different appearances at the tournament, and South Korea, who just like Ghana, will also be making their 8th appearance at the tournament. And time again, there's been just one question that has been asked with this Black Princesses team. When will the time come for the team to finally qualify out of the group stage? From different conversations we have had with Coach Charles Sampson, he says the time is now for the Princesses to finally move out of the group stage at this particular tournament. But come September, we would indeed know if the Princesses have dotted all their I's and crossed their T's to make sure that this is indeed the time for them to finally move out of the group stage after 8 appearances.
Well, that was Akosua J bringing an end to Hot Edition here on 3FM 92.7. My name is Oreku Ampofo. We'll be back again, same time on Monday.